La Crosse Local is proud to be a sponsor of the La Crosse Winter Roots Festival, brought to you by Ultra Federal Credit Union. We invite you to celebrate music, cuisine, artists, makers, brewers, and distillers in the new La Crosse Center Riverside Ballroom. Musical entertainment includes Dan Sobronic, Reed Grimm, Tug, The Remainders, Gregg Hall and the Wrecking Ball, and the Trippin' Billies, the nation's most renowned Dave Matthews tribute band. La Crosse Winter Roots Festival is presented by the La Crosse Center, La Crosse Local, and with special thanks to The Remainders.
I'm going home. Hey, I'm going home.
Find out more information and how to get tickets at lacrosselocal.com. We're talking to musician Gregg Hall and producer Chad Staehly about the new album Echoes in the Treetops. We chat about the writing process, recording at the famous Pachyderm Recording Studio, and what's coming up for these musically inclined locals. We also touch on their involvement in the La Crosse Winter Roots Festival and Chad's updates from the Crosse Distilling Company. You can find more conversation, food reviews, live music, and events on our website, lacrosselocal.com. I'm Amy.
And I'm Brent.
And this is La Crosse Local.
They keep dropping like flies around me, but I'm still standing. I might lose my mind and go crazy, but I'm still standing. I've been here before. On my knees, crappy flop on the floor. I think I'll head downtown for another round. I see a dog fight in
We're
my
talking to
dreams,
Gregg
but
Hall and Chad Staehly, lifelong touring musicians, producers, album makers, family men, and collaborators in the community from Moon Tunes, fundraisers, events, and much more. But we're here to talk about the album Echoes in the Treetops. So, Gregg, just knowing you for, basically my whole life, playing music around the area, what was your point in, going from Gregg Hall and the Wrecking Ball to making this solo album? Your different iterations of bands. What led you to this solo piece?
Well, I kind of wanted to expand, broaden my horizons a little bit, break out of the lacrosse scene, if you will, and try to do something a little bit more. I don't want to use the word professional, but just a little bit out of my comfort zone. So I picked Pachyderm. I've seen there's so many other artists seem to be gravitating toward that studio. So I figured, and then I got to help Matt Putis make a record there too, and I was just blown away by the quality of the studio, the location, and just the majestic energy that lives and breathes at Pachyderm Studios, having such artists like Nirvana and some of these bigger names record some classic albums there. So I figured it would be a good place to try to go a different direction. Because, I love the country thing too, but, I'm not real genre focused in one specific area of music. And I like to showcase all of what I've got. And it's not just in the country realm. So.
And Chad, how did you get in the mix? I know just from following along with you on social media, you seem to be recording at that studio pretty much at least monthly, it seems like.
Yeah, well, I think Gregg reached out to me, and I think I could color it in too a little bit further as to why Gregg went this route. He called me early on in the process. It seemed you were kind of going through some life changes, Gregg. I mean, I think as artists, we're always going through life changes and trying to capture those life changes into the form of art, right? So Gregg had called and brought that to my attention and said, yeah, I'm writing some songs and been really enjoying. I was working as producer on the Matt Putis album too up at Pachyderm. And Gregg said, I think I'd like to record my next project up there, and started to tell me a little bit about what he had been dealing with in life stuff. And, he had some blues songs, and he was also writing like some of these songwriter, but also kind of classic rock songs too, that really caught my attention. I feel like rock and roll is kind of fallen by the wayside again. and kind of needs a revolution and a renaissance and a reckoning again. And I thought Gregg was on a path towards writing some songs that could do that. And so we kind of, as we were conversing, made a decision to start focusing more on the songwriter and rock and roll songs and move the blues songs over to the side and maybe save those for another project. And I think that's kind of one of the jobs a record producer has, you know, converse and hang out with the artist and find out what they're inching towards in their creative mind and creative space.
We were just talking before we hit record about Nirvana and the way that album is recorded with their unplugged version. Then also having the ability to record at Pachyderm Recording Studio. What was that process like for you, Gregg, working in such a well-known studio?
Well, for me, it's like you really got to bring your A game. And like I mentioned before, bringing me out of my comfort zone of whatever that looks like and really getting down to business, you know, and hiring somebody of Chad's caliber and hiring a studio at that caliber. It's like, well, here it is, man. Put on your big boy pants. Let's roll and let's be as pro as we can possibly be and get stuff done. It was a challenge for me to really step up my game as a musician, songwriter, and producer collaborator in the studio as well. So it was good for me to boost my confidence up, try to get into that next level of being a musician or whatever you want to call it. I figured I needed to get to that next level, whatever that may be. I needed to make a record like this, produced by Chad, and at the professional studio, maybe just to turn a few heads that I might not have been turning before.
Talking a lot about the studio, it just has some history with it. Chad, you've recorded a number of albums there. Is it just because of the location to La Crosse, or why do you pick that location recording?
Well, certainly had, moved here to La Crosse about 4 years ago. Had lived around Denver and the Front Range of Colorado for 20 some years. And of course had a ton of great studios at our fingertips there. I spent quite a bit of time at Bob Weir, the Grateful Dead's TRI studio out on the West Coast. So certainly have gotten a glimpse into certain things that make a great studio, and had read a lot about Pachyderm prior to moving to the area. And then shortly after I moved here, Adam Gruhl from Horseshoes and Hand Grenades asked me to produce the latest Horseshoes and Hand Grenades album up there. And that was my first experience there, and really dug Nick, who runs the studio and also is the house engineer. The space is amazing. It's on a chunk of private land outside of Cannon Falls. There's a house everybody can stay at, which is, I think, lends itself really well to focus and concentration on the tasks and work at hand. And it's inspiring, and there's great vintage equipment there. This was mostly tracked and recorded in an analog fashion, some digital post-production, but most of it was recorded in an analog fashion, which adds a warmth to it. And I think something that maybe a casual listener might not pick up on, sonically, but I think it's kind of like your favorite blanket to get underneath, on the couch while you're watching TV, and that studio provides this. So, and first and foremost, it's just an inspiring space. There's a certain magical quality to it, even despite it, falling into disrepair several times in its history. It's got a really wild history behind it. It started out as a party house, I believe, for a big corporate exec, and then was turned into a studio, and then fell into total disrepair, and then was renovated and restored to become the great place and recording studio it is now again.
Was there a moment that stuck out for you guys in particular with the recording of Echoes in the Treetops?
For me, the one song that I think I like the most on that album, and to me means the most, is the Cardinal song.
No, I can't fly away with you. I need to see another day. I feel you every moment, feel your love in every way, and I'll see you on the day it's my turn to fly away.
Trying to explore my those rock and roll roots, you know, like we did in high school with like this Led Zeppelin, and you know, like Love Withstands too, that almost kind of Pearl Jammy rock sound. I mean, that I can say all three of us, you know, being products of the 90s, 80s, whatever, you know, and the rise of grunge and rock and roll, and trying to maybe get back to my roots to where, I mean, I feel like I built my whole songwriting, composing, musical experience on those early 90s bands. So trying to get back to that feeling again when you first started playing music. And I feel that's what that album means to me. Like, I don't know, I'm saying this a lot, but getting back to my roots and where I grew up on musically feels, you know, pretty good. Where I'm at halfway through my life, getting back to that, where it all started, is a really warm feeling.
The Cardinal song is definitely also where I felt that same, like, all right, this is a core piece to what we're doing here over this weekend. It kind of felt like it tied the whole room together. You know, it had this rock element, but there's acoustic guitars that are driving it, and Malum was playing these big bombastic rock drums to that. And that part of what's great about Pachyderm too, in terms of how the studio is laid out. Gregg can be in an isolation room with his acoustic guitar and singing, and Malum's in the big room. They can see each other, but we're isolating them and getting quality sonics, while also being able to combine these two kind of opposites of acoustic guitars and big bombastic rock drums. So it also, that song lent itself to the power of Pachyderm.
So people will be able to check out the album on another project you guys are kind of working on simultaneously, is the La Crosse Winter Roots Festival, which is coming up in February at the new ballroom at the La Crosse Center. Gregg, you're playing. And also, Chad, you partnered to bring in La Crosse Distilling Company for the VIP ticket holders. You guys are brewing a beer, all sorts of stuff happening. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, I can speak from the La Crosse Distilling Company side. First of all, it's really exciting to see the La Crosse Center in its newest, best form, and the fact that they're trying to put on some events like this that are kind of locally curated and celebrating some of the great things La Crosse has to offer. So I think that's really exciting to see the 2.0 La Crosse Center moving towards some events like that. Yeah, we're excited with the distillery to be a part of it. You know, first and foremost, we distill organic spirits there, but we've also been brewing beer now more seriously for the last year or two. And Brent and my brother Chava hooked up and started conspiring about that. And yeah, we've made a black lager for this event called Barbagazzi Black Lager Ale, which will be fun to release, especially just to that event. And hopefully for the coming years, we'll keep making that beer. And we've kind of created this mythological creature behind it to help celebrate some really cool La Crosse things.
And Cheech, what can people expect from you? Is the show going to rock?
It's going to rock, man. I got the Wrecking Ball, which is more of my country band, but we're going to incorporate a couple of the new songs into it. We're planning to do some collaborating with Reed Grimm as well. So it's going to be a rocking show, you know, and all the bands, and Tug and Danny Sobronic and Trippin' Billy's from Chicago, correct? And the Remainders. I mean, that's a lot of heavy hitters in the La Crosse community, musically and, you know, business-wise, with Chad and you and Jay and everybody coming together to really do something cool and maybe promote the idea of other big shows that we can do at this new remodeled space at the La Crosse Center. So I'm really looking forward to being a part of its beginning, if you will.
When's the album come out?
Well, we're gonna have a CD release April 15th at the Main. Just we're working out the details right now, but it should be up and running here hopefully by the end of the day.
Is there anything else coming up for you guys that you're excited about?
Dees Fest will be July. I think it's 29th through the 31st. We're doing that again. 2022. We got a lot of good local names on there. The Crush Brothers, we're bringing them back. That's Reed Grimm and Heatbox, and a couple of guys from the Woo and Alex Steele, and you know, a lot of the good local bands that we have every year. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, I just got off the phone with the executive director of the Moses Conference, Tom Manley, which will be another event at the end of February. If people out there listening haven't ever attended a Moses Conference, it's the largest organic farming conference, and I think in the world. Pretty amazing that we get to host that in our backyard, and Crosse Distilling Company has been a sponsor of that in the past and will continue to do so. And I also got off the phone with Adam Gruel from Horseshoes and Hand Grenades. It appears they're going to be playing a show at the Cavalier on the Saturday night, February 26th of Moses Conference at the Cav. And we're going to sponsor that show and do a special discount for Moses attendees on ticket price. The High Hawks, a band I play in, will be back in the Midwest. Our last tour in December got cut a little short. Our fiddle player, Tim Carbone from Railroad Earth, tested positive while we were out on the road for COVID, and we had to bag the Wausau show. So we rescheduled our Wausau show for March 5th at the Grand Theater. And I think the night before, we're going to be down in Madison playing at the High Noon after Billy String's show at the Sylvie. So kind of a post-party deal going on. And there's going to be lots of other stuff happening. So yeah, just, trying to get out and be normal amidst total abnormality in the world. So, and music is a big part of that, and if we can keep live music going in a safe way and keep people safe, I think it's one of the best things we can do for the humans.
For the humans. So coming up February 12th, Winter Roots Festival. People check that out at lacrosselocal.com. Cheech, where do they head to for pick up your album?
We got some records out at Instrument Repair of Lacrosse, the Trumpelow Hotel, Deaf Ear Records, Tree Huggers Co-op. You can go on deeceproductions.com, has records, CDs, and 21 different merch stuff promoting everything that's me. So, and Gregg Hall music is also available too, and that's getting revamped by Jim Farley, and that should be up and running too, hopefully in the next week or so. So you'll be able to go there. So gregghallmusic.com, deeceproductions.com.
How many URLs do we need? And you too, Chad. You got to name every single one of your bands you're in.
We won't do that to everybody, but if they Google the High Hawks or Hardworking Americans or Great American Taxi or Crosse Distilling Company, whatever, if you're into any of that, it's out there. It can be found.
Lacrosse Local Podcast is a production of River Travel Media. Do you have an interview idea you'd like to share with us? Message us on Facebook at Lacrosse Local. Find out more about us at lacrosselocal.com, and you can subscribe to the Lacrosse Local Podcast on your favorite podcast app. If you like us, rate us 5 stars. We appreciate it.